Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to our study of Proverbs, looking at different subjects and seeing as some tend to overlap. Right? I mean, Proverbs is not a book where it says, okay, let's talk about one thing and I'll second another, but it kind of mixes all up together. And we'll see more of that today as we move on to look at the subject or the contrast between the fool and the wise. And already right there, we've seen these characters before. These two types of personalities that can exist. And I will focus more on them. There's a lot being said in the book of Proverbs about the differences between the wise and the fool. We'll break it down into two videos. And in this one, we'll focus on, I would say, the mind, the heart, and the bowels of both these people. You'll see what I mean when we get into the text. Let's start with the mind, how they think, if you will. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. We're kind of going to see here two ways to go, right? It speaks of a way of life, a path we take, almost like two streams presented one against the other. Contrast one after the other. And sometimes the contrasts are really one for one. They're like this and the other one's completely opposite. Well, there's certain contrasts that kind of break apart, even though they're still contrasting the wise and fool. Here's more of a one for one. On one side of the stream, you got the fool. Now this fool is right in his own eyes. His own advice comes from him. And he's always right, of course. Well, on the other side, you got the wise. And he's willing to listen to advice. So he's willing to hear from the outside himself. So from within, from without. Where they get their knowledge from within, from without. The fool and the wise. Well, let's keep moving forward on this path, shall we? Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise. But the companion of fools will suffer harm. Now the contrast has been broken, right? There's a zigzag going on with the fool. We start with the wise. The wise is in company or walking with are the wise. Of course, that's where he's going to hear wisdom and receive the instruction. And that's why he's going to become more wise. And that's the result, right? He'll become wise. Well, then you get the fool, who only listens to himself. And even when he hangs out with other fools, he's always listening to himself. And that's when you'd expect the result to be, and he will be led into foolishness, right? He'll become even more foolish. But no, we hear that they'll suffer. They'll suffer harm. We don't want to scratch our head and say, why is this zigzagging here? Why is their result harm? Well, their result is just more wisdom. Well, let's keep moving down the river and see. The wisdom of the prudent is discern his way, but the folly of fools is deceiving. Here's more of a one-on-one comparison and contrast between the two. Where, again, we see everything being piled on to the first person being wise, prudent. Of course, he's listened to wisdom. He's hanging out with wise people, more mature people. So, of course, his wisdom will be of great prudence and it'll give him discernment. He'll be able to figure out where there's dangers in the road and he won't fall. Well, the fool, who's given over to his folly because he's listening to himself and surrounded by other fools, well, he's just going to be deceiving himself. So one will have good discernment and recognize the traps, while the other one will deceive himself, and so of course he'll walk into traps. See, that's where the harm can come from. Yeah, as we keep focusing, moving forward on this path, following these rivers, we're starting to see why is it so destructive for the fool to give over to his own folly. To surround himself by other fools, listening to himself and deceiving himself. Well, we find out that one who is wise is cautious and turns away from evil. But a fool is just reckless and careless. Again, there's zigzagging going on with the branch of the fool. I should keep it on that side for now. Keep switching the sides. My apologies. But yeah, the wise one, the one who's prudent, the one who surrounds himself by wise people, listen to their counsel, well, he'll be cautious, he'll be discerning, and therefore he will turn away from evil. He'll recognize the traps and what's harmful and destructive, and he'll turn away from it. And therefore you would expect that the fool here doesn't turn away, but instead it just says that he's reckless and careless. He's abandoned and foolish. He thinks he's always right. He doesn't consider anything before him. He's surrounding himself by other fools. He's deceiving himself. And so he'll walk into so many traps. Of course, he's going to harm himself. You see, that's where the harm comes from, I would say. And there's a reason for all of this. Their focus. The discerning sets his face towards wisdom. But the eyes of the fool are on the ends of the earth. We understand the first part, right? Again, the discerning is the wise person, he's the prudent person, the one who's surrounding himself by those who are wise, listening to their counsel. So, of course, what he is aiming at, what he wants, is just more wisdom. To know how to live this world in a way that honors God. But the fool, who's surrounded by other fools, who's always right in his own eyes, who's reckless and abandoning himself, just going forward, not thinking about it, because his main focus, the ends of the earth. Yeah, the idea is probably he's just having a big picture type of thing. He just sees beyond all possibilities. Instead of the right here, right now, he's seeing it all, seeing that he can get it all as he wants it all. That's probably the idea here. The fool, he just looks so far ahead of him, thinking of all the stuff he needs and gets, that he's not thinking about here and now and every step he needs to take. And of course, therefore, again, he's going to fall and hurt himself. His focus. Now, let's not be too quick to separate ourselves and say, I'm a believer, therefore I must be in the wise person category. No, there's still a sense of examining your heart. Because the fool, again, is one who's right in his own eyes. I know how it works. I've been a Christian long enough. I read my Bible. He surrounds himself with other fools and is deceiving himself. He goes about in a reckless way, living how he thinks he should live, and ends up hurting himself because he thinks big. All these things can describe many believers nowadays. That's not wisdom. The wise one will listen to rebukes and instruction. He'll surround himself by more mature people and he'll receive what they have to say, so that way he'll have discernment. He'll recognize what is evil and be able to stay away from it. His focus is about the day-to-day life and to walk in a way that honors God. That's the mind. Now we're going on into the hearts, the emotions, the feelings. And we read this. Doing wrong is like a joke to a fool, but wisdom is pleasure to a man of understanding. So this is where I got my little title from. Joke to the fool. It speaks more of not making jokes as much as enjoying. For the fool, it is doing wrong that is enjoyable. That's why he does it. He's finding pleasure in it. He sees it as the best way to succeed in his mind, so he's going to give himself to it even more. Compared to the wise, or the man of understanding, the woman of understanding, his pleasure is in wisdom, once again. He looks for it because he wants it, because it means fellowship with God and living in a way that honors him. So he finds his pleasure there. That's where his heart is, if you will. Continuing down this reasoning, we read, folly is a joy to him who lacks sense, but a man of understanding walks straight ahead. Again, it seems to be broken, the contrast, but not really. The fool, once more, is one who finds enjoyment in folly, in rebelling against God, living his own way, doing evil. That's where he finds his pleasure. This person who lacks sense. But this person of understanding, man or woman, one who's prudent, who's been instructed and receiving it, is going to walk straight ahead, or if you prefer, in a straight path, in the path of light. He's not going to look on the other side and see the possibilities and say, ooh, that could be nice. No, honoring God, that's all that matters. Living in wisdom, that's all that matters. He's not distracted by all these other things that are tickling his heart. They can excite the flesh. No, he's focused on that one thing. And therefore, a fool despises his father's instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is prudent. Right? That's the result in a way. We remember the father's instruction. We've seen it from the beginning of this book, where it's not just your earthly father, but your divine father who's trying to teach you. The fool, he wants nothing to do with it. It's a joke to him. That's the joke to him. That's what he finds funny. God tells me what to do. Now I'm going to live my way. Right? It's right in my own eyes and find pleasure in that. But again, the one who is prudent, the one who is wise, is the one who heeds reproofs. Not only listen to instruction, but also willing to be corrected when he's wrong. Which kind of leads me to yet another little correction I wish to do. Because we, again, may be quick to say, yeah, the fool. The fool, he gives himself over to sin. Oh, it's ugly. He just finds pleasure in that. I'm not like that. But what are you finding your entertainment in? We got so many movies and TV shows where sin abounds everywhere and we enjoy that. That seems wrong. On Sunday morning, we hear the preacher talk against these sin and we say, yes, that's evil. And then click, we watch it and say, that's funny. We're not looking straight ahead then. We're not focused on wisdom and living in a way that honors God. We're also finding pleasure and enjoyment in doing wrong. Just another way. Now, are we willing to receive that instruction? Or kind of say that's being legalistic? Well, this will bring me to the bowels. The bowel is the deep, passionate emotions. And there's only one, actually, that we can see as a difference between the fool and the wise person. The vexation of a fool is known at once, but the prudent ignores an insult. This is all about anger. Another of these subjects we've seen before. About exploding in frustration because somebody has hurt you. The fool, it's going to be known. He's not going to hold it in. He's going to express himself. But the prudent, though, again, the one who's listening and receiving rebukes, the one who is wise, will be willing to ignore or cover. And that too we've seen before. When we spoke about anger, they need to cover up the insults, the harm done against us. Like love that covers a multitude of sins. Not covering over. Sin is evil. We denounce it. But in our hearts, we forgive. We love, we bless instead. That's what the prudent does. And in the same vein, we can also read, a fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. Again, that self-control we've also seen. That self-control is a testimony of wisdom. Because foolishness is found in the sense of venting. Here again, I have to say, how many of us, when we've been harmed by somebody else, by your church, by your work, do we need to vent it out? Tell other people how wronged we've been. But the prudent person, the wise person, holds it in and covers it up and forgives and shows love instead. As I said from the beginning, this is a call to not just say, I'm the believer, therefore I'm in the first category, but to examine our hearts. Wisdom is a purposeful effort, just like foolishness is a given over to something. Which one are we? Let's go back through these verses and meditate for ourselves. Which one are we? On this note, be blessed.